Hello, everyone. Welcome to Kryptonized. Today, I have a guest all the way across the world into the future. Actually, it's Saturday there. Right, Lewis?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. All right. And he is going to talk to us today about tokenized real estate in Australia. And I know he's got opinions from other places around the world, especially here in the U.S. So with that, why don't you take it away and give you a brief background on yourself?
Yeah, look, my name is Luis Miguel Lexo. I'm the managing director and co-founder of Brick BC Projects. We tokenize real estate properties in Australia. We've got two live properties at the moment in Brisbane and Gold Coast. But yeah, look, I'm actually a CPA accountant in Australia and in practice have been for around 28 years. So my background is very much in terms of dealing with property and building construction. So and also been in terms of doing our own properties as a family as well for more than 28 years. So I guess you sort of get to see the challenges, and hence why we started tokenizing property to address the clunkiness of traditional real estate.
All right, and a lot of people watching this are like, what is tokenization? And then what's tokenization of real estate? What do those terms mean?
Yeah, look, I like to keep it very simple. It's basically it's traditional real estate in terms of ownership and traditional real estate, but basically now you're just fractionalizing that real estate into tokens. So just think of a puzzle, and you've got 100 pieces of a puzzle that makes up that property, where everybody's owns a piece of that puzzle. So again, the fractionalization and obviously tokenizing on the blockchain in terms of those ownership of those tokens that make up the property is just now actually sits on a blockchain and provides that transparency. So again, that's the very simplicity of it in terms of, and obviously anybody can look at in terms of that who owns that token because it's now on the blockchain, it can't be changed, it's transparent, and I guess this provides the ability for anybody from anywhere in the world to have access to a traditional real estate through tokenization.
Okay, and you've done, I don't know how many projects in Australia, and just let everyone know why those developers or owners of these properties decide to tokenize versus more of a traditional route through. In the US here, it's a Reg A, Reg D, Reg S.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is in Australia. I'm sure they've got similar security types of laws, but why did they decide to tokenize?
In terms of why did we decide to tokenize, not so much the developers, because again we are developers ourselves. It's just that we're actually buying our properties at the moment from my colleagues, from my contacts I've had for a long time who are developers themselves. But there's too many things, too many uncontrollable variables at the moment. So for us, we decided to tokenize real estate because of the clunkiness of the banking system, the everyday person trying to buy real estate is becoming harder and harder. Banking policies and the clunkiness of that, but also obviously rising values and becoming out of reach for the everyday person. So the reason we decided to tokenize real estate is basically provide the opportunity for anybody. Doesn't matter what your wealth class is, and doesn't matter where you are in the world, to now have actually access to properties here in Australia, and I'll sort of elaborate more in terms of why Australia. And again, we got the Olympics in 2032. That was actually a big cherry on top that we didn't know even before we started tokenizing. But there's some variables happening in Australia, especially here in our state of Queensland, in Brisbane and Gold Coast in particular, in terms of our cities, is that we've got this. Property here in Australia, it doubles every time. So you got 2x every 10 years. But because of these variables in terms of migration, we've got in terms interstate migration from other states, we've got migration coming from overseas, expats coming back, and then you put the massive cherry on top with the Olympics. We see it doing sort of 4x in the next 10 years, properties here in Australia, wow. Residential properties. That's what we focus. We focus on residential, luxury, single family homes. So they've got these variables that we know the increase in value is going to be even more than normal. So this is a way of us to, rather than just keep doing the same old in terms of what we've done in the past as a family, we actually now, bringing people on the journey with us from all over the world. So again, it's like I said, we've got unlimited access to properties given our contacts who are developers. So we're just going and buying from them.
Okay. And how do they buy your tokens? Where would they go?
Yeah, so in terms of on our website, people go there and go into our property tokens platform. and from there you do your registration, you do your KYC and AML requirements that we have to do. And then basically they use USDC to basically swap for a token. So we try to keep our tokens under $100 US each, just to make sure like anybody, you can buy one, you can buy many. But again, we see it as a way for people. Anybody can, doesn't matter what part of the world, it's accessible to anybody, given that price range. So they go there, swap a USDC digital currency for a token. So we've got the dolphin tokens and we've got the koala tokens, which is the two properties respectively. So they just swap for that. So once they buy it, then they can take it to their own wallet if they like, or we can custodian it for them if they like. So depending on their confidence in using wallets. So it's cutting for the people that are just coming in for the first time to the obviously people who are very very experienced using wallets in the blockchain. Yeah.
And there's a lot more security, I believe. There's a lot more security with these security tokens than if they were Ethereum or some other utility token. Because isn't there some sort of registration process, or am I wrong about that?
In terms of the tokens, obviously there's a few blockchains you can tokenize assets on, and obviously including real estate. We did start with the Ethereum, but that was before the gas fees went crazy because of the NFTs around 18 months ago, 2 years ago. So we actually swapped across to the Ravencoin blockchain, and again, it provided us with the same but even more better features. And obviously, gas fees are next not even 1 cent compared to $80, $100 as they were in terms of just the gas fees alone. So basically, we saw the Ethereum blockchain has been a massive barrier. Without sort of going into too much detail, but we saw that as a huge barrier for the everyday person to buy a token, a property token, where they're also then having to pay very extreme gas fees for it. So again, it's one of those things you've got to pivot. And given obviously the target market, we saw the target market in terms of retail, we needed to address that issue. And so Ravencoin is where we're tokenizing our Gold Coast properties on the Ravencoin blockchain. Is actually the first historical property to be minted on the Ravencoin blockchain. So again, that's where we see our future in terms of what blockchain we're using. Yeah.
Okay. And when you decided to tokenize this real estate, how difficult was the process? And if you understand the U.S. process,
Yeah.
is it a lot easier? Is it a lot harder? Tell us about that comparison. But first tell us about your experience just doing it in Australia.
Yeah, so basically, as I said earlier in my introduction, I'm a CPA accountant, so obviously given my background working with entities and structures, for a lot of years, and putting this together, it doesn't matter what industry, so you get a good understanding in terms of the things you got to deal with in terms of different legislations and so forth, whether it be federal tax laws and state laws and, ASIC, which is your SEC equivalent. So dealing with all those legislations, you get to know exactly what boxes you got to tick from a compliance perspective. So my first point of call in terms of when we started, and basically you're going down that rabbit hole, blockchain. Could blockchain provide a solution for tokenized real estate? Because having gone down that rabbit hole and doing always the thorough research and coming to a conclusion, it could actually provide that solution. And then it was about creating this model from our perspective to meet all the legislation first here in Australia. So again, just whiteboarding it, and probably took me around 3 months to come to the final model that ticked all the boxes. And so that was the first point of call. And I think anybody that's any my colleagues around the world that are planning, I think that's your first start. Look at your own country first in terms of the laws in your own country, and see what you got to comply with first. So after doing that, then basically was well, now how do we comply with blockchain rules? And having looked around, doing my research in terms of who was the best of breed around the world, and then I could actually have the conversation to one, what are the blockchain rules for us to put our platform on, and two, in terms of who could actually build our platform from an IT perspective. Because I'm not an IT person. I've got a general understanding, but I don't code. So it was finding that best of breed, and got talking with Klaus Scanning from the CEO of DigiShares, based out of Denmark, and we had these conversations backwards and forwards over Zoom. And basically I said it's got to meet these rules here. How do we do it on the blockchain? And obviously being guided, and it had to be sort of a hybrid, because to meet our rules, it had to be a hybrid of a security token, which we ended up sort of using our own language where we call it a property token, because it is very much a hybrid between a security token and NFT. So it sits sort of in the middle of those elements to meet our model. So yeah, so basically, so DigiShares built our platform, and basically they maintain our platform to today, and obviously continuing to do so. And so, given obviously their great knowledge in the space of blockchain, they're our people to go to when it comes to especially the IT side of things. And if there's things obviously we're trying to improve in terms of how do we do it on the platform. So that was our journey from. But in terms of my colleagues around the world that are doing it, I mean, the US is a very hard place to do it, and I think you need to. I was speaking to a couple of colleagues actually in the planning phase at the moment, and there was one that was trying to pull the trigger, and finding the costs involved to all the reg, in terms of compliance, obviously different ways you can do it in the US, and obviously engaging consultants and so forth to do it. It was quite an expensive exercise. So it's one of those things that if you have to sort of put it out on the gauge in terms of heavy compliance to low compliance, I think US sits at the heavy compliance end of the scale. Well, I think more in terms at the lower end. I think Scandinavia is sort of more at the. It's a bit easy to do, more acceptance, and I think Australia sits at that point as well. I think in Australia, I mean, don't quote me on. I mean, I sort of we sort of plan our own path, and we sort of don't look in terms of what other people are doing as far as in Australia, because I think we actually are the only ones in Australia currently doing it, tokenizing real estate. Well, we've got live properties anyway. I haven't heard of anybody else. So I guess we're sort of pioneers when it comes to Australia, and I guess in terms of around the world, it's probably sort of a handful. I think there's probably only 30 of us doing it around the world, and that's probably obviously with the big barriers to entry in terms of especially as you said in the US, those large barriers. But yeah, look, it's if you have a look at places like Dubai, for example, it's even more extreme than you guys, because they just got a colleague that's trying to do some stuff over there, and it's one of those things. I think one of the guys said, do we actually do it and ask for forgiveness later on, or do we just basically ask for permission now and wait for we get that permission?
Right. Well, here's my take on it. First of
Yeah.
all, it's being done every single day in the United States, thousands and thousands of times a year, just using a standard Reg A, Reg D, Reg S. For some reason, tokenization throws everything into a tailspin, and unless you got your T's crossed, your I's dotted, become a longer process. I think some of those issues are being solved now. It should be solved with legislation eventually, but yeah, it's a pain in the ass when it shouldn't be, because all you're doing is bringing these regular documents that are used every single day into a digital world, and that's where the problems begin. But I think we're going to solve those problems here pretty quickly. I think a lot of it's going to be, hey, do we ask for permission or we just go do it? And I think you know my position on it. Let's make some legal precedents.
Yeah.
But I do feel like, and I think you join me in this, it's so early, but it is the future. There's going to be so much regulation around crypto that we're going to see people flock to this space, but this space needs to get its act together as well and make sure that they have an easy onboarding process and provide some more liquidity, because there is liquidity out there, but it's nothing like the crypto space, and certainly nothing like the REIT or stock market. But I do believe we'll get there by just continuing on this path and educating people on what it is. It seems obvious to me that everyone should be doing it, but a lot of them are like, well, isn't security tokens, isn't that crypto? And it's like, not really. It's on the blockchain, yes, but it's actually secured by something of value.
And that's a good point there. I mean, that's something a lot of people get confused. They just chuck everything in the same hole in terms of obviously with what's been happening with crypto, with the FTXs of this world. cause a lot of negativity in our industry. But just education. Well, yes, it's on the blockchain, but it's not crypto. It's actually backed by real estate property. It's real. You can touch it. Some gang actually touch it. Actually, Tron did actually touch it. Actually, Tron, he was obviously who started the Ravencoin blockchain, and Tron Black, and he was actually here on a holiday. So it was great to see in terms of him actually coming and touching the Brisbane property, took photos. So again, just to show, that was a great example in terms of, these are properties that actually they live. You can go and touch them, but they just happen to be in terms of having the access through property tokens that anybody can actually now participate in terms of the benefits that comes with real estate property.
Yeah, I have one last question before we wrap things up. So, did you think to offer any benefits beyond ownership of your properties in Australia, like cash flow, participating in any cash flow, or maybe you give me a discount to stay at your place? I mean, anything like that? Had you considered that?
It's funny you say that. Again, it's something I don't like to sort of confuse things. I like to say at the moment we're focusing on this in terms of tokenizing the real estate properties. I mean, our model is we don't pay the rent, and that's because from a compliance perspective, we don't pay the rent out. So each property is owned by a special purpose vehicle, an Australian private company, and in there, basically, the rent gets reinvested into a crypto portfolio. So basically, you got the main asset, obviously the property, but you got this accumulating crypto portfolio that it just gets bought every month. So the net rent that comes out, you just buy, accumulate it. We're not about to try and time the market. It's just accumulating, just like the property. It's held long term, indefinitely. And so from that perspective, there, it's a matter. Just property is long term, and it should be treated so. And but the ability to people to actually cash in some tokens if they get into cash flow problems, they got the ability to go and just if they've got 100 tokens in the property, they can go and cash in 50 if they need the funds. If there's been a medical reason they got into trouble, whatever, and that's the beauty about tokenized real estate. You don't have to sell the whole property at the wrong time as well. You can now, through tokenized property, you can just go and sell some tokens of your portfolio to be able to access money. The second part to your question there, in terms of benefits that we're thinking of, we actually are thinking in terms of probably in a couple of years' time to, again, I hate using the word timeshare because it has a negative tone around the world, doesn't matter what country. I think we've all seen those platforms in the 80s and 90s and what we're on there. But we like to think that in terms of some of in a couple of years' time, we can tokenize a property, and it'll be more of a small group of people, and introducing that time in terms of the ability of people that come and actually stay in the property as part of. So obviously, it'll be short-term tenants in it, but the ability for the token owners to actually come in and stay in the property. So just think of it a Gold Coast property that's in the middle of golf courses as at Sanctuary Cove, which I've already picked out the spots, and then you've got beaches basically 5 minutes down the road. You can actually come and actually stay in that property, and you're an owner of it because you've got property tokens in it, and you've also got the ability when you come here to Australia on holidays, you've got a place to stay. So that's something that we've got in the pipeline. But again, at the moment, we're just trying to keep things very simple.
Excellent. All right. Well, it's going to get exciting, and you've got to join Luis on his show. He puts on a Twitter show. What, bi-monthly now?
Yeah, we got the round table of asset tokenization of assets theme. It's bi-monthly. So we usually have last Tuesday of that bi-monthly. But we also have our Twitter Spaces. We got our Q&A every week on our Twitter platform, and also we also do a weekly what is real estate tokenization, where we have speakers come in and. Again, just our way to contribute towards the education awareness in terms of what's happening in tokenized real estate.
All right, and we'll have all those links in the description.
Thanks, Mark.
And again, I just want to thank you for being on the show, and let's continue to promote this space because it is the future.
Absolutely, and thank you for all your great content you put out there, because that helps us all as an industry to keep educating.
Hello, Kryptonized fans. I've got a token for you. We've had a lot of tokens come on the show. Some we like, some we don't. But we really like Tetragard. Why? Because it is a wrapped coin with PAX G, with Ethereum
Bitcoin and this rewards token called Quadrant. So you get it all wrapped up in kind of a one-click buy at the website below. And if you hold on to it, you get rewards that you could sell back to the Ethereum blockchain and get more Ethereum just for holding what I liken to an ETF. So again, it's Tetragard. Check it out. This is a no-brainer to invest in, especially what's going on in this world.